Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente du Parlement européen, Madame la Présidente de la Commission, très chers collègues. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, 2 days ago, I was at the UN Security Council to express our common European commitment to condemn Russian atrocities and to reaffirm our support for Ukraine. The Russian ambassador didn't like what I said. He walked out because he refused to look truth in the eye. But we won't stop telling the truth. We won't stop acting to back Ukraine and to confront Russia with the facts. Dear colleagues, Russia is using food as a weapon of war, stealing grain, blockading ports, and turning farmlands into battlefields. There are over 20 million tons of grain, wheat, and corn stuck in Ukraine. This is disrupting global food security, driving up prices, and causing global famine. During our European Council meeting, we focused on the logistical solutions to get these products to global markets, including working with Ukraine and EU member states to establish alternative transport routes. Global hunger is everyone's business, so it requires a coordinated, comprehensive and global approach, and we work with the G7, with the African Union and with all the other partners. In New York, a few days ago, I met with Secretary General Guterres to discuss global food security and our common efforts to get the blocked grain out of Odessa. The Kremlin is weaponizing food supplies and surrounding their actions with a web of lies, Soviet style. We must join forces to call out these fabrications as pure fiction, particularly for the global south. These are Russian ships and Russian missiles that are blocking the exports of crops and grain. Russian tanks, bombs and mines are preventing Ukraine from planting and harvesting. Let's be clear, these are no EU sanctions on Russian agricultural products. And I say to all countries affected by this food crisis, don't be fooled by the Kremlin's propaganda. Don't be instrumentalized by Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, we also reached a landmark agreement on Russian oil. This embargo will cover 90% of all imports from Russia into the EU by the end of the year. This is a remarkable achievement, and it will be extended to all pipeline oil as soon as possible. 2 months ago, in this House, I said that measures on hydrocarbons will be needed sooner or later, and we did it. This shows that we are and we remain united and committed to piling the pressure on Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine urgently needs liquidity, 5 billion euros a month just to keep the country running. So we discussed how we can work with our international partners to get the Ukrainian government the money it needs. We agreed to provide up to 9 billion euros to Ukraine in macrofinancial assistance. And we also addressed Ukraine's reconstruction right now and in the future. The EU must be and will be a leader in driving this forward. We discussed a Ukraine reconstruction platform together with the Ukrainian government, the EU and member states, and all our international partners and friends. Ladies and gentlemen, Russia is brutally destroying Ukraine, and it's only fair that Russia, the aggressor, should pay to rebuild the country. So we agreed to look into the possibility of confiscating assets of sanctioned Russian individuals and entities in line with EU and international law. This could help finance Ukraine's reconstruction. Russia's war has bolstered ambition for a strong, coordinated European defense. In March, in Versailles, we agreed to strengthen our security and to increase our sovereignty. We want to have defense capabilities that match today's threats, and we agree to urgently replenish member states' stocks of equipment sent to Ukraine, and in the medium and long term, to reinforce our European defense technology and industrial sector, including SMEs. This means better coordinating our purchases and pooling spending for joint procurement. Member states' lack of cooperation on defense is costing tens of billions of euros per year. Only 11% of member states' defense investments are spent collaboratively, and we are missing huge opportunities for real savings, for economies of scale, and for ensuring that our armed forces are more interoperable. A more capable EU will strengthen NATO and increase global security. We also discussed energy prices, including the possibility of trying to lower the gas price by capping it together with our international partners. Different views remain on the feasibility, and we have therefore tasked the Commission to analyse this, and we are also working to phase out Russian fossil fuel imports. And to become more energy independent, we will act in 4 key areas. First, we will diversify the fuels we use and the sources they come from. Second, we will speed up the deployment of renewables and the permitting procedures. Third, we will do more to save energy and promote energy efficiency. And finally, we will invest in infrastructure, interconnections, and renewables. But our discussions show that much work remains on the financing aspects of the Commission's proposals, and the Council will now take words forward in these different areas. Listen, gentlemen, dear colleagues, if we want to be a geopolitical power, we must act as a geopolitical power. This means taking care of ourselves, but also taking care of others. By banding together, we can use that power to become more sovereign and more prosperous, more influential. We are united and committed to back Ukraine and to build our common future. I thank you.
Thank you very much, President Michel. And now I give the floor to the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
Madam President, dear Roberta, Mr. President, cher Charles, ladies and gentlemen, honourable members. In the early weeks of this war, you remember that the leaders were gathering in Versailles and Europe found a common sense of purpose. The European Commission took responsibility to translating this purpose into action. At the European Council last week, there we presented our very practical approaches and proposals on 4 main topics. The first one is we have to get rid of the dependency on Russian fossil fuels. We have gotten rid already of coal. We are now in a phase where we can wind down the dependency on Russian oil, 90% till the end of the year. I would have hoped for 100%, but this is unanimity, so 90% is good till the end of the year. And now we have to look at gas, and for that we presented the 300 billion package Repower EU. What is in it? 3 main pillars. The first one is diversify away from Russia towards more trustworthy and good suppliers, friends of us, for example, the United States, and to invest in the necessary infrastructure in a way, when I'm speaking, for example, about pipelines and interconnectors, that yes, today it's for gas, but tomorrow it has to be hydrogen ready, so the investment is worth it. The second part is energy saving and energy efficiency. Sounds so easy, is big topic, because I just want to share with you one figure that really impressed me. If in the European Union, over a year, we decrease the average heating temperature by 2 degrees only, this is the equivalent of the whole supply of Nord Stream 1. 2 degrees only. And this shows the power of energy savings and energy efficiency. And the third pillar is the most important, that is massive investment in renewables. And I could speak here for an hour about that topic, but I will not do that because I have to focus now on the three other topics. The second one is and was defense at the Council. The Commission did a gaps analysis. There is a clear underinvestment since the economic and financial crisis. You can see it. I give you a few figures that show that. In the last decade, we had an increase in defense spending in the European Union by 19%. The United States, 65%. Russia, 300%. And China, 600%. And I think these figures are telling. So now the good news is that leaders have stepped up, and if you look at the figures they have now put publicly as investment in defense, it's 200 billion. Now it is important not only that we have these 200 billion, but how we spend it. And here joint procurement is paramount, because this is a question of ending the fragmentation, of economy of scale, of interoperability, and of development of our industrial base here in the European Union. So we really have to look at that intensively. The third topic was very important on relief and reconstruction on Ukraine. I explained it extensively last time when we were here in Strasbourg. So today I want to focus on food security, and perhaps in my closing remarks it might be possible to refer to the relief and reconstruction. Food security. Honourable members, the Russian invasion of Ukraine reverberates around the world. This is not just about what its impact is on economics, geopolitics, and security architecture. It is about the lives and livelihoods of millions of people around the world. Millions of people who fear that they will not be able to afford tomorrow how to heat their homes and how to feed their children. And the numbers are stark. This year alone, some 275 million people are likely to be at least at the risk of food insecurity across the world, not to know where to get your food as of tomorrow. And in an inflationary world we are in right now, that risk and those numbers can quickly spiral further out of control. Many families in parts of sub-Saharan Africa already spend close to half of their income on food. They have no room to maneuver anymore with rising food prices. No way. So it is no surprise that the World Bank has estimated that 10 million people are pushed into extreme poverty for every percentage point increase in food prices. 10 million people, 1% increase. So we should be under no illusions about the challenges ahead. We are facing up to a collision of crises which will amplify food insecurity and debt distress around the world. Some of these are a legacy of the pandemic and wider issues linked to the cost of living, for instance, the rising energy prices that have driven up the costs of fertilizers or of transporting exports. Others are more long-term and structural, such as the effects of extreme weather linked to climate change. But, honourable members, whether cyclical or structural, all of these impacts have one thing in common. They are massively and deliberately compounded by Putin's war. And this is a cold, callous, and calculated siege by Putin on some of the most vulnerable countries and people in the world. And therefore, honourable members, food has become now part of the Kremlin's arsenal of terror, and we cannot tolerate this. I think this is the only way to describe Russia's bombarding of grain storage, the blockage of the Ukrainian ports, actually also in some cases even theft of grain from Ukraine. So at the moment being, there are around about 20 million tons of grain currently trapped in Ukraine, and it is our duty to dismantle Russia's disinformation. Let's be very clear, here in this hemicycle and outside. Our sanctions do not touch basic food commodities. They do not affect the trading of grain or other food between Russia and third countries. And the port embargo specifically has full exemption on agricultural goods. So let's stick to the truth. It's Putin's war of aggression that fuels the food crisis and nothing else. Honourable members, while the cause is without doubt, our response must be just as clear. And there are 4 areas of action which I believe we must now focus on together. The first is keeping the markets open so that trade can continue to flow. This means stepping up our work on the solidarity lanes. We are working very hard to provide an alternative way. I know it's not optimal, but it's at least something to make sure that the grain that is blocked in Ukraine gets to the markets as quickly as possible. This helps. But the world needs the Black Sea ports of Ukraine up and running again, because the majority of Ukrainian grain can only be exported in time through the Black Sea routes. And therefore, I'm very grateful to the United Nations for its efforts. In parallel, we need to work with our partners to ensure that there are no export restrictions or controls that will hamper the market. The European Union keeps its foods export going, and so should everyone else. Second area, this is solidarity and support to partners. This is about short-term support to the countries mostly at risk. For example, we are now investing an additional 225 million euros to address the short and medium-term needs of the southern neighbourhood partners. And I will be in Egypt next week to discuss with President al-Sisi how best we can target our support to the region. This is a big, big task for all of us. The third area is responding and investing in making our response in investing in making local markets more sustainable and resilient. If you look at the figures, 50 years ago, Africa produced all the food it needed, only 50 years ago. Then climate change made water scarce, and the desert swallowed hundreds of kilometers of fertile land year after year. Today, Africa is heavily dependent on imports for critical food products, and this makes it vulnerable. And therefore, in the medium and long term, an initiative to boost the region's own production capacity is critical to strengthen the region's resilience. We should have the same mindset like we did with the vaccines. Yes, at the moment being, we have to bring food to Africa. Yes, it is the short-term solution and it is necessary without any question. And we should look at how we use our grain here in Europe and how much we can really bring to Africa. But in the mid and long term, like with the vaccines, it should be the technology that is in Africa, and Africa produces itself what it needs. So here we really have to step up. And for this, the EU budget has already earmarked 3 billion euros to invest in agriculture and nutrition, water and sanitation programs, precision farming, nanotechnology for fertilizers. You don't need the energy anymore. So there are many, many interesting technologies out there. But it is clear that we need to do more and we will need to move faster. And this is why the Commission has raised with Member States now the possibility to mobilize 600 million euros of decommitted funds from the European Development Fund. And please, I would be very, very happy if we move swiftly. I know that this Parliament is able to do it. You have proven it in the crisis, so let's prove it another time. Finally, let me emphasize that we are not doing this alone. We are working very closely with Member States through the Team Europe approach. We are working closely with the United Nations and the G7 presidency. That has made this a key theme of the upcoming leaders' meeting. Unity and support are the strongest messages we can send in the face of Russian aggression and Russian disinformation. And honourable members, it is only natural that many of our partners around the world see this conflict through the prism of food and energy crisis. And they expect the European Union, of course other countries in the world too, but they expect the European Union to show the same resolve, the same solidarity, as we have rightly so shown to Ukraine when it comes to addressing the food crisis in the world. And this is exactly what we will have to do through our own response, through our work with the G7 and with other partners. Long live Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commission President, I'll now invite, on behalf of the EPP Group, Manfred Weber to take the floor.
President Metsola, von der Leyen, Michel, dear colleagues. Yeah, let's assess the last Council meeting. First of all, about sanctions, defence, all the other initiatives. I think the outcome is good. We made a step forward. Europe is on a good way. But I ask myself, frankly speaking, when we reflect about the last Council meeting, why nobody mentioned until now the name of Viktor Orban? Because when people see what and saw what happened in the last European Council, I think they understood that there is Viktor Orban, one of the crazy guys on the table. And this is a problem for us as Europeans. I ask myself, how was it to sit next to him, to have the experience to be blackmailed by Viktor Orban, to have Putin's interests sitting on the table? I have a long history, personally, with Viktor Orban. We kicked him out 2 years ago. Today, my party, the EPP, is in Poland, in Czech Republic, for example. We kicked out the corrupt Babiš out of office. So we are the rule of law party today in a lot of Centre and Eastern European countries. I am proud about this. But again, how was it? And I ask these questions, because I think a lot of people, all of Europe, understand that the current architecture, the current decision-making process is not anymore giving us answer to the tasks of the table. That's why the question again, why are not we initiating the passerelle clause in the Lisbon Treaty? Why do we don't discuss these issues? And the European Parliament will vote tomorrow on the idea to ask for a convention. I think all colleagues from the other groups that we find a good text now, that we find a common understanding about our requests on the table, a joint text. I hope that the leaders have enough will, show enough leadership to really develop the idea of a convention. When we speak about leadership, then also Ukraine is in our mind. The next European Council will have to discuss about the candidate status. I want to remind ourselves that a few days after the war started, on 24th of February, President Zelensky was here on the screen, and he was asking us, are we welcomed? Can we become member of the club? Is it worth to fight? That was his question. And I said here, like a lot of my colleagues, yes, you are welcome. Yes, you can join the European Union. And that's why it's so important that we give in the next European Council a clear mandate, a clear signal to the Ukraine friends that their fight is a good fight and they are welcomed in the European family. So that's why we need a decision of a candidate status now. That is what we need. And also for Moldova, I want to be clear on this, that the Republic of Moldova has to have the same treatment. I want to underline that this is part of a broader development, for sure. When we speak about Western Balkan, the whole enlargement process is not anymore about the single market. It is today about stability. And that's why we should do it now. We should show leadership again in this aspect. And my group is hardly fighting for this. And then I want to welcome the initiatives from the Commission on the food security. Madam President, a lot of these issues are good issues, and to prioritise this is great. Probably, generally speaking, we can say farmers are not anymore seen as the bad guys polluting our environment, because that was the perception over the last years. Farmers are those who are working hard, families who are working hard to deliver high-quality food for all of us, and that should be respected, that should be seen, especially in the week where we celebrate 60 years of the CAP. And when we speak about the economic situation, dear colleagues, for farmers, then I want to ask President of the Council to consider to put another item on the agenda of the next European Council, because for the moment we speak a lot about the external dimension, but we don't speak so much about the concerns of our citizens, and that is about inflation, That is about the interest rates going up in the next few months, what we hear from the ECB. The growth rate is not promising for today's European expectations. We are in front of a recession, of a possible recession. People are confronted with the question, can I pay my bill for holidays now or for a better education for my children? That is the question of our citizens in the European Union. And that's why politically, populists are already waiting for this development. We have to give an answer. We have to prioritize this debate now. We have to prioritize it now. And the EPP always insisting in jobs, jobs, jobs. That is our method. And I ask you now to put this on the agenda of the European Council, to discuss this issue among leaders. From my political family, I can tell you, with strengthening single market, less bureaucracy, yes to trade agreements. We need the Mercosur agreement now. And also in this Fit for 55 package of today, to find a good balance. We want to have a decarbonization, but not a deindustrialization of the European Union. That is now on the table, and that's why we have to prioritize this issue. Leadership is needed again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Now, on behalf of the S&D Group, I invite Irache Garcia Perez. Take the floor.
Gracias, presidenta. El otro día, cuando seguía las noticias que me llegaban del Consejo, tengo que decirles que tenía sentimientos contradictorios. Por un lado, alivio al ver que finalmente se mantenía la unidad de los 27, porque esa es nuestra mejor arma para hacer frente a la amenaza de Putin y también para apoyar a Ucrania. Me alegré de que se adoptara el sexto paquete de sanciones a pesar de las concesiones. No me sorprendieron, sinceramente, porque algunos que no conocen el significado de la palabra solidaridad intentaron sacar tajada de la crisis. Pero eso entraba dentro de lo esperado. Lo que no me esperaba es que tanto la Comisión como el Consejo se olvidaran de la dimensión interna de esta crisis, que no hayan discutido la resolución de este Parlamento sobre las consecuencias sociales y económicas que acabábamos de adoptar. Por supuesto que vamos a apoyar a Ucrania. Por supuesto que debemos fortalecer nuestra seguridad colectiva. Por supuesto que tenemos una responsabilidad para evitar una crisis alimentaria mundial. Pero no querer ver cómo esta guerra afecta a la vida cotidiana de los europeos y las europeas es una miopía peligrosa. Sí, peligrosa porque no hay nada más que salir a la calle y hablar con la gente. Vamos, no necesitamos ni siquiera hablar con la gente. Imagino que cualquiera de ustedes va al supermercado cuando podemos salir de este Parlamento y ve cómo se ha encarecido la cesta de la compra. Y seguro que son conscientes de que hay muchísimas familias en Europa que tienen verdaderas dificultades, que no cuentan con más de 50 euros semanales para poder cubrir la cesta de la compra. Y sobre eso es sobre lo que tenemos que hablar. Y por eso lamento que en el Consejo no se discutiera a fondo sobre esta cuestión. No sabemos cuánto tiempo va a durar esta guerra. Ya no es una situación de emergencia y todas nuestras políticas deben contemplar esta dimensión de ahora en adelante. Realmente ya tenemos el mayor flujo de refugiados y sobre todo refugiadas desde la Segunda Guerra Mundial. Es encomiable la solidaridad que muestra la ciudadanía y sobre todo los países que tienen frontera con Ucrania. Ahora a ver si los gobiernos están a la altura, porque necesitamos financiar las políticas de integración para todas estas personas. Y yo creo que ya es hora de que el Consejo se siente a hablar del pacto migratorio, señor Michel. La emergencia climática y la crisis alimentaria a la que la propia Comisión se ha referido nos parecen indicar que la presión migratoria no parece que vaya a atenuarse. Y entonces, ¿qué tenemos que hacer? Trabajar desde ahora, trabajar y estar preparados. Busquemos una solución digna, solidaria y ambiciosa que ponga frente al reto demográfico. Porque la creación de nuevos instrumentos financieros será la mejor manera de garantizar esto. Si los Estados miembros establecieran un impuesto a los beneficios caídos del cielo a las eléctricas de manera coordinada, tal y como pide este Parlamento, se podrían recaudar 90.000 millones de euros al año. Fíjense la de políticas sociales que podríamos hacer con ese dinero. Por lo tanto, tenemos la posibilidad de actuar más. Concluyo con una propuesta, o mejor dos. La primera, que se lean la resolución de este Parlamento sobre las consecuencias sociales y económicas. Y la segunda, organicemos una nueva cumbre social como la que se celebró en Oporto el pasado año para dar respuesta a este momento de inflación y de incertidumbre social que estamos viviendo. Ideas no nos falta coraje y convencimiento de que podemos hacer mejor las cosas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia Perez. Now, on behalf of the Renew Group, I invite Malik Asmani to take the floor.
Dear Presidents, honourable members, while the war in Ukraine carries on, our European unity becomes even more important. It becomes more important, but also more difficult. Even though the real suffering occurs on our eastern border, we too feel the impact of war. The outcome of the European Council shows the European Union can still deliver. Thank you for your leadership, dear Charles, for securing the sixth package despite the behaviour of some. Nevertheless, we can and must do more. President Putin bets that our willingness to increase costs on his regime will reduce. And let's prove him wrong. Let's show him we mean it when we say freedom must overcome tyranny. Let us prepare for winter by increasing our energy security and investing in the green transition. Let us continue and step up our military aid so that Ukraine has a chance to determine the outcome of the battlefield. Getting produced food out of Ukraine will stop Putin using famine as a weapon, which could also lead to migration crises here in Europe. Putin's cynical blockade of Ukraine's ports shows his total disregard for the global community. We must all speak out. Our partners must also deliver, and we welcome Egypt's refusal of Russia-stolen Ukraine wheat. Dear Presidents, we must be clear with our global partners, as the US have been, that they must reject Russia's plundered commodities or face diplomatic consequences. Finally, colleagues, there can be no impunity for war crimes. Renew Europe welcomed the Council's conclusions supporting the ICC and the establishment of a joint investigation team coordinated by Eurojust. And I repeat my call for more member states to join the JIT to improve the collection of evidence. Coordination is the cure to duplication. Duplication can be painful for victims who have to relive their tragedies to investigators. And it will ensure the aggressors are held to account, which must remain the ambition of this House and these member states. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asmani. Next is Philip Lambert on behalf of the Green Group.
Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Président, depuis l'agression de l'Ukraine par la Russie de Poutine, l'Union européenne fait la démonstration d'une unité et d'une détermination que beaucoup avaient sous-estimées. Et je veux le dire, votre travail, à tous les deux, y est pour beaucoup. Notre première responsabilité est de les préserver dans la durée. La dynamique collective amorcée avec REPowerEU peut justement y contribuer. Sortir des hydrocarbures russes permettrait à la fois de renforcer notre indépendance énergétique et d'affaiblir Vladimir Poutine. Ce sevrage des énergies fossiles est urgent et indispensable, mais reste terriblement compliqué. Après le charbon, le sommet de la semaine dernière a certes entériné l'abandon du pétrole russe, mais ça ne se fera pas avant la fin de l'année. Ceci donnera tout le temps à Poutine pour s'y préparer, en engrangeant au passage des surprofits, vu la hausse des prix que nos propres décisions ne manqueront pas d'alimenter. Quant à un embargo sur le gaz russe, en réalité, nous en laissons l'initiative à Vladimir Poutine lui-même. Je pense que beaucoup d'entre nous auraient souhaité une rupture immédiate avec cette double dépendance russe et fossile. Mais les choix du passé rendent ce scénario impossible. Les infrastructures énergétiques, en effet, ont été conçues pour durer et les remplacer ou les adapter requiert un temps et des moyens considérables. Alors que des gouvernements européens songent encore aujourd'hui à remettre en service des mines de charbon ou se contentent de remplacer le gaz russe par du gaz venu d'ailleurs est donc une totale aberration. C'est à nouveau s'assurer que nous serons esclaves demain de décisions fossiles prises aujourd'hui. Nous accueillons par contre favorablement le coup d'accélérateur que la Commission européenne veut donner à la transition énergétique avec le plan REPowerEU. Plus de renouvelables, plus d'efficacité, voilà le commencement de la sagesse énergétique. Ce plan reste cependant trop timide sur le troisième volet essentiel de la transition, la réduction de notre voracité. Et vous y avez en fait allusion, Madame la Présidente, en parlant de la température dans les bâtiments. Le toujours plus vite, toujours plus loin entraîne des dépenses énergétiques que nous ne pouvons tout simplement plus nous permettre. L'heure d'une sobriété juste est venue et là tout reste à faire. Et Monsieur le Président Michel, en fait, en ce domaine, le gros des moyens, le gros des leviers se trouve dans les mains des États membres. La deuxième préoccupation dont je veux vous faire part ce matin concerne l'attitude européenne face aux dérives autoritaires des gouvernements hongrois et polonais. En ce moment, ils utilisent la guerre en Ukraine à la fois comme un alibi pour faire oublier leurs atteintes systématiques à l'état de droit et comme un levier pour faire chanter l'Europe. D'un côté, Viktor Orban tente de conditionner son ralliement à l'embargo pétrolier à l'obtention de plusieurs centaines de millions d'euros sans aucune condition liée à l'état de droit. De l'autre, Mateusz Morawiecki est parvenu à faire approuver le plan de relance polonais par la Commission malgré l'opposition de plusieurs membres éminents du collège. Et comme eux, nous n'avons aucune confiance dans un gouvernement polonais qui, jusqu'ici, s'est refusé à poser le moindre geste concret en réponse aux nombreux griefs émis par la Commission européenne et la Cour de justice de l'Union. Les trois conditions posées au versement du fonds de relance à la Pologne ne constituent qu'une partie de ces griefs. Et voilà que la Commission ne fait plus un préalable de la réinstallation des juges illégalement limogés. Pour nous, c'est hors de question. Nous appelons donc les gouvernements des États membres à ne pas approuver le plan de relance polonais en l'état. Comme la plupart des citoyennes et des citoyens hongrois, polonais ou du reste de l'Union, je veux le répéter, nous aspirons sincèrement à une pacification durable des relations de l'Union avec ces deux États membres qui ont toute leur place au sein de l'Union. Mais cela ne peut se faire que si leur gouvernement renonce à leurs dérives liberticides. Voir l'Union européenne abandonner ses valeurs fondamentales serait une victoire pour Vladimir Poutine. Le maintien de la détermination et de l'unité des Européens ne pourra jamais se faire au prix d'un tel reniement. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mr. Lamberts. And now, on behalf of the ID Group, Jack Madison.
Thanks so much, Madam President, Madam Leyen, Mr. Michel. First of all, as I have only 1 minute or 1.5 minutes, I would like to really agree with Mr. Weber from EPP when he mentioned that actually we have to discuss also about topics when we're talking about inflation, when we're talking about the food security. I really loved when he mentioned that we shouldn't see anymore the farmers as a huge risk or damage to the environment. We have to see them as a producer for the food. And we know that we need a food security to be more independent from Russia, from China, even from the US. And of course, and if you don't propose solutions, if we can't solve the real problems for our citizens in European countries, then those bad guys, as called populists, will come with solutions. And of course, they propose sometimes very good solutions, if I call myself as a populist sometimes. Second thing, about Russia and Ukraine. I think the sanction packet is, of course, a huge step forward. But at the same time, we have to remind that from 24th of February, EU has paid over 50 billion euros to Russia for the energy. At the same time, we have proposed the military help from the EU only for a few billion euros. And the sanctions are effective in the long term, maybe, in 6 months, in 1 year. But we have to think how to win Russia in few months, in the end of the summer. And we will win the war if there is enough military aid to Ukraine. And if Germany is not doing enough, as we see today by Mr. Scholz, if France is totally not understandable, if Mr. Macron is saying that we can't humiliate Vladimir Putin, then it's your duty, and it's your duty, to provide more military aid by EU to Ukraine to win this war. And then we can also look forward with a sanction package to destroy their economy. That's the short-term view, how we have to react. And for the long term, of course, the sanctions are necessary. I don't agree also with some member states who are trying to block everything and are not cooperating together. But more thinking on the inflation, economic problem for our citizens, and more thinking about the military aid to Ukraine. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madison. Next, on behalf of the ECR Group, Raffaele Fitto. Onorevole, prego.
Grazie Presidente, Presidente della Commissione, del Consiglio, colleghi. Le scelte che il Consiglio ha messo in campo sono importanti, visto il momento strategico, soprattutto perché ribadiscono un concetto fondamentale, che è quello di proseguire sul percorso dell'unità. Ecco perché noi apprezziamo anche lo sforzo che viene compiuto per individuare delle soluzioni dal punto di vista della unità nell'ambito del conflitto, per condannare con forza e con decisione l'azione che la Russia ha messo in campo e anche e soprattutto per evidenziare, così come stiamo cercando di fare in tutti i modi, delle soluzioni che possano andare nella chiara possibilità di una risposta forte. E in questo senso lo sforzo di trovare una sintesi nell'ambito dell'approvazione, per esempio, del PNRR della Polonia è esattamente l'opposto di quanto ha detto il collega Lamberts fino adesso, e noi apprezziamo e riteniamo che sia un utile sforzo nel dialogo per cercare di valorizzare il lavoro fatto. Detto questo, due considerazioni di fondo sulla sicurezza alimentare e sull'energia. Noi paghiamo degli errori che sono stati compiuti negli anni e oggi dobbiamo evitare di compiere gli stessi errori. Sulla sicurezza alimentare, lo ha detto la Presidente von der Leyen, e lo voglio ribadire, rischiamo che venga utilizzata dal punto di vista anche strumentale da parte della Russia, mettendo in moto una strategia che possa aggravare l'utilizzo strumentale dell'immigrazione, perché se scoppiano le tensioni dal punto di vista alimentare nel Nord Africa, le conseguenze saranno dell'Europa. Abbiamo bisogno di dare risposte adeguate in questo senso, ma lo dobbiamo fare compiendo anche delle scelte diverse rispetto agli errori che sono stati compiuti nel passato. Non possono essere vessati delle intere categorie un sistema produttivo in campo agricolo, così come sul tema ambientale dobbiamo partire energetico dagli errori che sono stati compiuti nel passato, perché se oggi noi abbiamo una dipendenza, evidentemente ci sono stati degli errori che oggi vanno corretti, e una serie di scelte che parallelamente questo Parlamento e la Commissione propone, penso al Fit for 55, rischiano di apparire in contraddizione rispetto allo sforzo e all'obiettivo che noi dobbiamo mettere in campo. Ecco perché il nostro supporto al tema delle sanzioni è pieno, ma soprattutto lo vogliamo fare cercando di rendere questo aspetto quanto più comprensibile dai nostri cittadini, perché diversamente rischiamo di essere schiacciati in una contraddizione e in una reazione. Lo dico anche supportando lo sforzo e l'impegno sul tema della difesa, immaginando e esprimendo una posizione chiara di sostegno all'ingresso nella NATO da parte di Svezia e di Finlandia, e sulla strategia che deve essere messa in campo, perché su questo terreno giochiamo una partita di prospettiva. Ecco perché il nostro gruppo chiede con forza di poter invertire alcune scelte e di poter comprendere che gli errori che sono stati commessi nel passato devono essere corretti rispetto alla strategia futura per dare risposte adeguate ai cittadini europei.
Grazie onorevole Fitto. Next, on behalf of the Left Group, I invite Martin Schirdewan to take the floor.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin. Die Preisexplosion bei Nahrungsmitteln stellt ein ernsthaftes Problem, vor allem für einkommensschwächere Haushalte und Familien dar. Der Butterpreis ist im letzten Jahr um 40%, der Preis für Obst und Gemüse um 20% gestiegen. Die Preise für Brot gehen durch die Decke und der Döner um die Ecke kostet mittlerweile 6 €. Und ich will nicht, dass Kinder am Ende des Monats ohne Pausenbrötchen in die Schule geschickt werden, weil das Geld in den Familien nicht reicht. Deshalb fordere ich die europäischen Regierungen, Herr Michel, auf, erstens Nahrungsmittelspekulation zu verbieten, damit nicht wenige Spekulanten gezielt an dem Hunger der vielen sich bereichern. Zweitens die Mehrwertsteuer auf Grundnahrungsmittel auf 0 zu senken. Und drittens kostenlose Kindergarten- und Schulspeisung anzubieten, so wie es auch in einigen europäischen Ländern bereits der Fall ist. Denn mit leerem Bauch lernt es sich nicht gut. Zu den Sanktionen. Es ist richtig, die Abhängigkeit von russischem Gas und Öl schnellstmöglich abzubauen. Man kann den Teufel aber nicht mit dem Beelzebub austreiben. Die Abhängigkeit von einem autoritären Regime löst man nicht durch die Abhängigkeiten von anderen Diktaturen. Die Lösung liegt vielmehr in mutigen und schnellstmöglichen Investitionen in die Energiewende. Wenn bald der Ölhahn zugedreht wird, dann braucht es jetzt eine klare Entwicklungsperspektive für die abhängigen Regionen. Es braucht Jobgarantien für die Beschäftigten, zum Beispiel in Schwedt oder in Leuna, also in Ostdeutschland, meiner Heimatregion. Wir können die Leute nicht im Regen stehen lassen. Doch lassen wir sie im Regen stehen, Frau von der Leyen, schafft man keine Akzeptanz für die Energiewende. Die Leute müssen am Ende des Monats noch das Licht anschalten können, wollen Fernsehen gucken oder etwas kochen. Und um deshalb die Preisexplosion im Energiesektor zu stoppen, brauchen wir jetzt einen Energiepreisdeckel. Bei den derzeitigen Preisen, bei der Preisentwicklung werden die großen Mineralöl- und Gaskonzerne weltweit einen zusätzlichen Gewinn in diesem Jahr allein von bis zu 1 Billion Euro erzielen. Die verdienen sich derzeit dumm und dämlich. Und wenn wir den einfachen Leuten helfen wollen, dann sollten wir die Krisengewinner zur Kasse bitten. Es braucht eine Übergewinnsteuer jetzt überall in Europa, auch in Deutschland. Vielen Dank.
Muito obrigado. Bom dia, colegas. Próxima intervenção, deputada não inscrita Sabrina Pignedoli. Minuto.
Presidente, ho letto le conclusioni del Consiglio europeo e nelle oltre 2700 parole non c'è la parola pace. L'unica arma che porta alla pace è la diplomazia, ma evidentemente pace e diplomazia non fanno parte della strategia europea in Ucraina. Ritengo che questo rappresenti un grave errore, perché l'unica vera vittoria è riportare la pace alla popolazione ucraina. Una strategia europea priva di una soluzione diplomatica concreta è destinata a fallire. Se vogliamo essere protagonisti nel nostro continente, se vogliamo portare Putin a un tavolo di pace, l'Europa assuma un'iniziativa politica forte sul piano diplomatico e lo costringa a negoziare. Abbiamo uno strumento a nostra disposizione, la deterrenza economica, con sanzioni che si basano sull'indipendenza dal gas russo. Dobbiamo investire risorse comuni sul modello del Recovery Fund, una strada che noi del Movimento 5 Stelle riteniamo inevitabile. Presidente Michel, la pace nasce dalla fatica di dire no, pensando prima di tutto alla popolazione ucraina. Per questo, al prossimo Consiglio europeo, spero che l'Europa prenda una posizione finalmente forte. Grazie.
Muito obrigado. Segunda ronda de intervenções. Johan Jarez Bogdan, minuto.
Grazie. Today I speak in my language, Romanian language. Excelențele voastre, fiecare pachet de sancțiuni împotriva Rusiei anunțat de instituțiile europene este prezentat ca fără precedent și e menit să pună presiune pe Putin, dar acest anticrist rezistă. Fiecare import de hidrocarburi din Rusia spre țările Uniunii Europene alimentează mașinăria de război zilnic a Kremlinului cu 800 de milioane de euro, ceea ce trebuie să înceteze. Este inacceptabil. Blocăm pe de-o parte și finanțăm pe cealaltă. Nu e în regulă și pare ipocrizie pură. Este ca o invitație pentru Putin să continue un război dement. Îi dăm apă la moară și alimentăm demența. Cine urmează? Țara mea, România, are o graniță de 650 de kilometri cu Ucraina, plus peste 120 de kilometri la Marea Neagră. Ni se dau asigurări că nu va ataca țări NATO, că nu va fi nici Republica Moldova. Adevărul e că doar bănuim asta. Republica Moldova se află într-o zonă a șantajului energetic și trebuie extrasă din presiunea de a renunța la orientarea ei euroatlantică. Goethe spunea că pentru orice realizare, primul pas este curajul. Să avem curajul să punem capăt finanțării indirecte a războiului. E greu, dar și piramidele au fost greu de construit. Industria noastră trebuie să caute alternative la alimentarea cu energie din Rusia, imediat. Avem acest curaj sau ne batem colegial pe umeri, satisfăcuți că am mimat frumos acțiunea? Thank you.
Muito obrigado. Próxima intervenção, Helene Fritzen, 2 minutos.
Tack, herr talman, kommissionen och rådet. Mer än 100 dagar och kriget i Ukraina pågår fortfarande. EU står mer enade än någonsin och nu måste vi fortsätta att sätta press på Ryssland. Det sjätte sanktionspaketet med ett importstopp av olja är därför oerhört viktigt. Och trots att inte all olja omfattas av stoppet är det ändå ett viktigt steg för att minska Putins möjligheter att finansiera detta olagliga och brutala krig i Ukraina. Och nu mer än någonsin behöver vi fortsätta arbetet med att bryta vårt beroende av rysk energi. Nästa steg måste bli att också stänga kranen för rysk gas i ledningarna. Och det finns bara en väg bort från höga energipriser i våra medlemsstater. Och det är att vi tillsammans blir självförsörjande på energi och att vi påskyndar energiomställningen. Vi måste bli oberoende av fossila bränslen nu. Och här vill jag lyfta fram bioenergi och biogas som tillsammans med vind- och solenergi är ett viktigt alternativ. Vi har sett det i Sverige, det är mycket framgångsrikt. Biogasen är helt förnybar. Jordbrukets och livsmedelsindustrins avfall tas om hand i ett kretslopp och blir värme i våra hus och drivmedel i våra bilar. Och avslutningsvis så välkomnar jag också diskussionen i rådet och besluten om livsmedelsförsörjningen. Att Ryssland förhindrar export av jordbruksprodukter från Ukraina får förödande konsekvenser främst i fattiga länder. Den globala livsmedelstryggheten måste vara en prioriterad fråga för EU och vi behöver göra allt vi kan för att vi ska på kort och lång sikt klara av att ta ansvar både för EU men också ett ledarskap globalt. Tack för ordet.
Muito obrigado. Segue Hilda Woutmans. Minuut.
Voorzitters, collega's, ik wil het vandaag hebben over twee zaken, namelijk de sancties en de Europese defensie. En het is goed, meneer Michel, dat we eindelijk een akkoord hebben over dat zesde sanctiepakket. Maar laten we eerlijk zijn, voor ons in het parlement kwam het een beetje te laat. En op de koop toe, en ik denk dat het meneer Weber was die het zei, is men eigenlijk gezwicht voor de chantage van meneer Orbán. 2 keer gezwicht eigenlijk. Ik weet wel, onze eenheid is belangrijk, maar wordt het niet hoog tijd dat we de macht afnemen van die autocraten en eigenlijk stoppen met die unanimiteit? Voor mij echt hoog tijd en ik hoop dan ook dat we dat donderdag hier in het parlement verder gaan vastleggen. En dan het goede nieuws, en dan richt ik mij meer tot Ursula von der Leyen. Het goede nieuws is die Europese defensie. Eindelijk hebben leiders gezegd, kijk, we gaan voor een echte Europese defensie. Het parlement heeft hier heel vaak over gezegd, kijk, laten we stoppen met die versnippering. Stoppen met die verspilling van die gelden. We geven evenveel uit aan defensie als China, 4 keer meer dan Rusland, en toch zijn we eigenlijk een militaire dwerg. Dus laten we nu van Europa een militair, industrieel blok maken. En wat mij betreft, mevrouw von der Leyen, een echt Europees leger. U heeft mijn steun. Ga daarvoor. Dank u wel.
Muito obrigado. Próxima intervenção, Harald Wilinski. Minuto.
Danke sehr, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren. Nachdem der ukrainisch-russische Konflikt erneut Thema in einer Sondersitzung des Rates ist und sich die allgemeine Situation aber nicht verbessert, sondern nur verschlimmert, kann ich nur einmal mehr auch an die Besonnenheit aller appellieren und sämtliche Anstrengungen zu verfolgen, die in Richtung Frieden und nicht weiter einer Befeuerung dieses kriegerischen Konfliktes als Ziel vor Augen haben. Es ist aus meiner Sicht ein falscher Weg, hier mit Hilfe der Amerikaner oder die EU hier mit mehr und mehr Waffen diesen Krieg aufrecht zu erhalten. Es ist aus meiner Sicht, und das muss auch einmal gesagt werden, auch nicht wirklich dienlich der ganzen Angelegenheit, wenn der ukrainische Präsident Zelensky hier mit einer Rhetorik in die Debatte geht, die nicht der Situation entsprechend ist, wenn er Drohungen vornimmt, wenn er sagt, dass die Europäische Union ohne die Ukraine keine Zukunft haben soll, das ist der falsche Weg. Da hat der ungarische Parlamentspräsident Käfer schon recht, wenn er sagt, dass derjenige normal, der um Hilfe ersucht, das höflich macht und das besonnen macht und nicht in einer solchen Rhetorik. Daher bitte alle Besonnenheit an den Tag legen, die Versorgungssicherheit in Europa nicht gefährden, das Sterben in der Ukraine beenden und alles in Richtung Frieden auf Schiene zu bringen. Danke sehr.
Muito obrigado. Próxima intervenção, Beata Sedlo, 1 minuto e 30.
Panie Przewodniczący, Szanowna Pani Przewodnicząca, Panie Przewodniczący, zanim przejdę do konkluzji Rady Europejskiej, muszę odnieść się w kilku zdaniach do słów, które padały tutaj pod adresem mojej ojczyzny Polski. I odpowiem jednemu z panów jako obywatelka polska. Polska jest dzisiaj tym krajem, który przyjął blisko 3 miliony uchodźców z Ukrainy. Polska jest tym krajem, w którym nasze rodziny goszczą w swoich domach naszych przyjaciół z Ukrainy, rodziny ukraińskie. Pomagamy humanitarnie i pomagamy militarnie. Nigdy nie mieliśmy wątpliwości, że Ukrainę należy wspierać, bo oni walczą o wolność nas wszystkich, o suwerenność nas wszystkich. I nigdy też Polska nie próbowała wprowadzać, między innymi w tej Izbie, rozwiązań, które de facto wspierały Putina. I jeżeli kieruje pan dzisiaj pod adresem, szanowny kolego, Polski te uwagi dotyczące tego, że powinny być wstrzymane środki finansowe dla mojego kraju, to proszę raczej zadzwonić do prezydenta Macrona czy kanclerza Scholza, bo oni dzwonią non-stop do Putina. I po tych telefonach między innymi doszło do ataków na magazyny żywnościowe w Ukrainie. Jeżeli będzie cały czas tutaj w parlamencie próba dezawuowania i podważania roli takich krajów jak Polska, które dzisiaj bronią suwerenności, solidarności i jedności europejskiej, to szanowni państwo, nawet najwspanialsze deklaracje, nawet najwspanialsze decyzje, które będą przyjmowane, rezolucje, plany, nie będą skuteczne. Solidarność europejska jest potrzebna nam dzisiaj wszystkim. To, co jest najistotniejsze i cieszę się, że na Radzie Europejskiej była na ten temat mowa, to jest bezpieczeństwo żywnościowe, to jest bezpieczeństwo energetyczne. Dzisiaj stoimy przed tymi wyzwaniami, które obok wojny na Ukrainie i pokonaniu Putina są dla Europejczyków najważniejsze. Dziękuję bardzo.
Muito obrigado. Próxima intervenção, Kinga Gál, 1 minuto.
Elnök úr, elnök asszony, biztos úr. Magyarországon odaadással segítjük a naponta 10 000-ezrével érkező ukrán menekülteket, és történelmünk legnagyobb humanitárius támogatását nyújtjuk Ukrajnának, és ezt tesszük addig, folytatjuk addig, ameddig szükséges. Elítéljük az orosz agressziót, és a háborús bűncselekmények kivizsgálását követeljük. Készek vagyunk áldozatot hozni a békéért. Ezért Magyarország minden korábbi szankciós csomagot támogatott, és minden megállapodást betart. Magyarország számára adottságai miatt végzetes a csővezetéken érkező kőolajra kivetett embargó. Ezért nyíltan merte vállalni álláspontját, de végigkereste az egység érdekében a közös megoldást. Így lett a kompromisszum jó. A vezetékeken keresztüli kőolajszállítás maradt. Meg kell értenünk, nem támogathatunk olyan szankciókat, melyek nagyobb kárt okoznak nekünk, mint amekkora kárt az orosz agresszornak. Mi magyarok a békét akarjuk megnyerni. Ezért támogatjuk egyházi vezetők szankcionálását. Köszönöm.
Muito obrigado. Próxima intervenção, Andrius Kubilius, 1 minuto.
Dear Presidents, dear colleagues, Council made important decisions, but still there is a lot to be done in order for us to come out from this geopolitical crisis becoming stronger. In order to do that, first of all, we need to look back and to name our mistakes of the last decades, which allowed this geopolitical crisis to happen. I see two major mistakes. First, for too long, we were considering that dialogue with Putin is more important than democracy in Russia. That is how we allowed Kremlin to become a new fascist regime. And second, for too long, we were keeping Ukraine in a geopolitical grey zone, not giving it a clear membership perspective, and because of that, Putin decided that Ukraine is his territory. We need to learn our lessons. We need to give Ukraine candidate status immediately. And also, we cannot be effective during the war with individual veto right of member states, which simply creates conditions for blackmail culture to spread. We are at the war, not just Ukraine. And I would like to see that this war will make all of us much stronger. Thanks a lot.
Muito obrigado. Próxima intervenção, Marek Belka, 2 minutos.
Mr. Chair, President Michel, President von der Leyen. Well, yesterday we had a discussion on the Polish recovery plan. It was not a very pleasant discussion for you, especially. This time, I have the pleasure to express my appreciation of the results of the summit, both for you and for you. This was important, but obviously not the last time we are discussing Ukraine. It's going to be an evergreen for the next weeks, months, or maybe even more. One thing that I would like to concentrate in my 1 minute is the long-term reconstruction strategy of Ukraine. And I would like to say we need 4 major things. First, we need a reliable partner on the Ukrainian side, which means we need a democratic, well-governed, non-corrupt, well-managed, and led with a strong hand. I'm sorry to say that this is not against democracy. We need a well-managed Ukraine. On the other side, we need a leader of the international community, and this time it's obvious. It's going to be the European Union. America can be a very important factor in military support of Ukraine, but not in the development, in reconstruction. It's on us. And we have to, well, as a matter of fact, there is a thinking of creating a Ukrainian reconstruction platform that would serve coordination of international partners willing to take part in the reconstruction of this country. Third, we need resources. And the resources, I mean public and private, but I think that the European Union as a leader should provide resources, maybe also in a similar way as we have provided it for the post-COVID reconstruction, post-COVID reaction. Maybe we should follow the experience of the RRF, of the Next Generation EU, and set up a fund, a facility to sort of galvanize resources from other sources. And the fourth, most important, what we need for reconstruction of Ukraine, it's political will. It's the realization that return to business as usual with Russia is not imaginable at the moment. And the last point, we have to care for the victim more than for the aggressor. Thank you.
Muito obrigado. Segue-se a intervenção de Luís Garicano. 1 minuto.
Madam President von der Leyen, Mr. President Charles Michel, we are very happy that the Council has agreed on an oil embargo. Congratulations. But this agreement still has 3 shortcomings. As you said, Madam von der Leyen, there's still no mention of gas. The agreement excludes oil coming through pipelines. If you allow me, the Orban-Putin pipeline is still open, and it will take 6 months to be implemented. In the meantime, Mr. Putin continues receiving inflated oil and gas revenue to pay for his military aggression, and Mr. Orban continues receiving his oil, which comes mostly through this pipeline. This is unacceptable. We need to stop Mr. Putin reducing these revenues, and we need to shorten this war. And we also need to restore the level playing field in the single market. How can we do that? We can accomplish both things by imposing a tariff on Russian oil imports. Madam von der Leyen, a 30% oil tariff would provide the European Union with around 15 billion euros in additional revenues. And as I have estimated elsewhere, Mr. Michel, Russia would lose approximately twice as much from the reduction of the oil exports plus the direct cost of the tariffs. A key advantage of the tariff is it doesn't require unanimity. So a qualified majority of member states in the Council, according to Article 31, is enough to get that tariff and recover the past and recover the level playing field. The tariff could be enforced next week if the Council voted it now. Let's do it now. This war has already lasted for too long. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Now we go for the catch the eye. We have requests from 4 different political groups, so I'll give one to each of those political groups, starting with Sean Kelly. You got the floor. 1 minute.
President Ursula was right when she said Putin's war of aggression is what fuels the food crisis. And of course, on top of that, there's the vile destruction of the infrastructure of Ukraine, killing of its citizens and raping of its women. And while all this is going on, we have the President of the rotating council, Macron, talking about we mustn't humiliate Putin. Who's doing the humiliating? Why is he so concerned? What does this actually mean? He has to be asked these questions. Does it mean that Ukraine is supposed to hand over half his territory to Putin so that he can claim he wins the war? Otherwise, he is humiliated by losing the war. How would he like if somebody invaded France and we started talking about we mustn't humiliate the aggressor, so part of France should be handed over to the aggressor? I think now is the time, and particularly at the next council meeting, to ask Mr Macron what does he mean by this, and why is he saying this now when the lives of Ukrainians are being destroyed every single day?
Thank you. Next speaker, Geert Bourgeois.
As my colleague Johan van Overtveld writes today in Politico, we have to be prepared for the reconstruction of Ukraine. So this will provoke a very, very huge cost. Vice President Dombrovskis argued for the aggressor pays principle. My question is there a decision on this principle? I agree with him. Is it possible to use the confiscated money, around $600 billion, and is there a legal fundament for it? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jordi Cañas.
Gracias, presidente. La guerra ha evidenciado nuestras debilidades y nuestras dependencias. Y frente a esas debilidades y dependencias no he escuchado ni una sola vez hablar de comercio, de profundizar nuestras relaciones comerciales, de buscar alternativas de suministro. Lo he escuchado en el gas y en el petróleo, pero no en los alimentos. ¿Y sabe qué pasa? La Comisión lleva casi 2 años paralizando acuerdos comerciales vitales para garantizar suministros alimentarios alternativos, entre ellos el acuerdo del Mercosur, fundamental por 2 países exportadores como Brasil y como Argentina. Cuando mira uno la foto de la resolución aprobada en la ONU apoyando la condena a la guerra de Ucrania, ¿sabe qué parte estaba en verde? América Latina. ¿Sabe qué parte estaba en azul de abstención? Asia. ¿Sabes a quién no le prestamos atención nunca desde el Parlamento Europeo, desde la Comisión y desde el Consejo? A América Latina. ¿No creen ustedes que es el momento de cuando se habla de geopolítica? Decía el presidente Charles Michel, si queremos ser una potencia geopolítica, podemos empezar a hacer geopolítica y dejar de mantener nuestros acuerdos comerciales en el congelador hasta que alguien decida que es el momento de ponerlos en circulación. Podemos empezar a intentar ratificar los acuerdos comerciales que nos pueden garantizar mercados alternativos y suministros alternativos. Gracias.
Muito obrigado. Próxima intervenção, Mark Butenga. 1 minute.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Ik ga een vraag stellen aan de voorzitter van de Europese Raad, Charles Michel, en de voorzitter van de Europese Commissie, mevrouw van der Leyen. De prijzen rijzen de pan uit. De mensen kunnen hun facturen niet meer betalen. Voedsel inderdaad, maar ook elektriciteit. En sinds oktober spelen jullie pingpong tussen de verschillende instellingen over wie wanneer de prijzen gaat blokkeren. Want dat is wat de mensen willen. De mensen zeggen die prijzen zijn te hoog, blokkeren die. In oktober zegt de commissie aan de lidstaten, jullie zouden de prijzen kunnen blokkeren. Dan komt er een top in Versailles van alle regeringsleiders en die speelt de bal terug naar de commissie zeggende, doe eens een voorstel. De commissie speelt de bal nog eens terug. Jullie zouden iets kunnen doen aan die prijzen. Wanneer blokkeren jullie die prijzen? Wanneer gebeurt dat nu eindelijk? De mensen wachten daarop. En als het gaat om multinationals te helpen, dan gaat het altijd snel. Maar voor de mensen is het wachten, wachten, ping, pong, ping, pong. Daar wil ik nu zo'n antwoord op. Dank u wel.
Thank you. Now we get to the final interventions. And I give the floor to the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. You got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Indeed, electricity prices, energy prices are skyrocketing, and we are doing a lot on it. We have issued a toolbox that many of our member states are using that is taxing the windfall profits and subsidizing thus the vulnerable households and the vulnerable businesses. But we also acknowledge that this is a short-term relief that will not really change something in the structure of the market. And what is the problem of the structure of the market? We still have an electricity market that is designed in a way like it was necessary 20 years ago when we started to bring in the renewables. So it is the renewables that go in first, at that time much more expensive, and later on comes the other energy topics, like, for example, oil or gas or nuclear or coal. And the one that comes last in, the most expensive, is defining the price. Today, the market is completely different. It is the renewables that are the most cost-effective and the cheapest ones. And they come in, and then at the very end comes in gas. Gas is the most expensive, but it defines the whole price. And this market system does not work anymore. We have to reform it. We have to adapt it to the new realities of dominant renewables. This is the task that the Commission has taken over now. This is not trivial. This is a huge reform. It will take time. It has to be well thought through. But we need to step forward to adapt our electricity market to the modern conditions. My second point is a reply to the question Malik Asmani put forward. We have done steps in the right direction. The first one is we have now the common storage of gas. And today we have 44% of our storages filled. This is better than last year. There we were at the same time at 40%. So the common storage does already work in the right direction. And we have formed just now a joint purchase platform so that the 27 member states can together jointly purchase, for example, gas worldwide. And this is so important because we are a big market power if we work at 27. If we go everyone on its own, it's fragmented to 27, and there's not at all a market power. But if we work together, we should keep in mind that of the pipeline gas, we have 75% of the world's demand. We hold it. So together, we are strong, we are powerful, and this we should use now, and therefore we have created this joint platform for gas purchases. Then there were several questions on relief and reconstruction. And yes, this is a big and mostly important topic. What is it? First of all, we need relief for Ukraine in the short term. As you might know, at the moment being, Ukraine needs per month 5 billion euros just to make it for the basics, pensions, salaries, basic services like healthcare. To uphold it, they need 5 billion. And here we have to step up together with others. G7 already came forward with a proposal. Now we want to join the G7, and we're working on the 9 billion relief for the next months from the European side. But the bigger topic is indeed the topic of reconstruction. Marek Belka, you mentioned a lot on that. Reconstruction would mean that the investment is colossal, as President Zelensky said. It is indeed colossal. We cannot do it on our own. We will carry our fair share, but we need others, like the financial institutions, the international one, IMF, OECD, G20, World Bank, for example. We need other partners, other countries to join. And therefore, we will form a platform co-led by Ukraine, they have to own it, and the European Union, to make sure that we have a common direction of travel. And then the second thing that is so important, that these investments go hand in hand with reforms to improve the administrative capacity of the country, to fight corruption, to make sure that there's an independent judiciary, to make sure that there is a conducive environment for the business sector. And we've done already a lot with Ukraine, and we know already a lot about each other. We've done reforms together, the land reform, for example, to kick out oligarchs, for example. So a lot has been done through our association agreement and the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement. We have a common grid, for example, too. And therefore, in the very end, important is the signal. There is no wild card for Ukraine. There are no shortcuts. The conditions have to be met. But if we invest and if we are combining that with reforms, this will pave the way towards the European Union. And finally, my last sentence, yes, the perpetrator, Russia, has to pay its fair share. So we are looking into the legal basis to achieve that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam President. Now, to close our debate, I will give the floor to President Charles Michel.
Très chers collègues, cela fait maintenant plus de 100 jours que la Russie a déclenché une guerre brutale, violente, indigne contre l'Ukraine. C'est une guerre contre les Ukrainiens, c'est une épreuve pour le peuple ukrainien qui en ce moment même souffre sous les bombes, sous les bombardements et sous les atrocités commises par les troupes russes. C'est aussi une épreuve pour l'Union européenne, parce que les missiles qui sont tirés sont aussi des missiles tirés contre nos valeurs, contre nos principes fondamentaux. Et c'est pour laquelle, depuis le premier jour, depuis la première heure, c'est dans l'unité et la fermeté qu'ensemble nous avons réagi. Et c'est vrai, chaque réunion du Conseil européen, les 27 chefs d'État et chefs de gouvernement, lorsqu'ils sont rassemblés, c'est un test pour l'unité de l'Union européenne. Et s'agissant de l'orientation qui a été prise, des sanctions fermes, rugueuses contre la Russie, un soutien massif et concret pour l'Ukraine, les derniers jours, le Conseil européen a permis de reconstituer une unité qui avait été ébranlée les 4 dernières semaines au départ du 6e paquet de sanctions. Il a fallu quelques heures pour se mettre d'accord. Et je voudrais peut-être clarifier, au vu des propos qui ont été tenus, un accord qui prend en considération 90%, 90% du pétrole russe qui sera affecté, sans se soumettre à un quelconque chantage financier. C'est bien les considérations techniques liées à la géographie d'un certain nombre de pays qui ont été le critère afin de prendre en considération la manière dont on va évaluer et progresser pour résoudre cette question afin que l'on soit en mesure de viser à terme les 100% de pétrole russe. C'est un premier élément. Deuxième élément, support à l'Ukraine, c'est un support financier, des liquidités, c'est immédiat, la Commission l'a bien indiqué. C'est l'engagement pour la reconstruction, une forme de plan Marshall pour l'Ukraine sera indispensable. Et ce n'est pas pour dans 150 ans, on doit démarrer dès à présent les programmes, engager aussi le soutien pour les réformes qui seront nécessaires afin que l'argent mobilisé permette de construire non pas l'Ukraine du passé, mais l'Ukraine de demain, moderne, transparente, fondée sur des bases démocratiques extrêmement solides. C'est du support humanitaire en Ukraine, du support humanitaire aussi pour accueillir dans la dignité les nombreux réfugiés qui fuient le pays, et c'est un soutien politique pour faire en sorte que, dans le cadre multilatéral, dans le cadre international, on soit également très mobilisé pour faire en sorte que le narratif mensonger russe porté par le Kremlin non seulement ne gagne pas du terrain, mais puisse être combattu grâce à la force de la vérité, à la force des arguments de rationalité que nous portons. Et puis il y a un point plus essentiel que je voudrais également faire, parce qu'il va nous concerner beaucoup dans les semaines et les mois qui viennent, c'est la sécurité alimentaire et c'est l'impact de cette guerre sur les prix des produits alimentaires. Le Conseil européen, la Commission, je suis certain le Parlement aussi, nous sommes parfaitement conscients de la menace qui nous guette. La famine, l'insécurité alimentaire, ce seront des instabilités, des insécurités et des pressions additionnelles sur l'Union européenne et sur nos sociétés. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle nous sommes totalement déterminés depuis le premier jour, à la fois pour dénoncer des mensonges du Kremlin, mais surtout pour agir. C'est le sens de la proposition de la présidence française, le projet Farm, c'est le sens de l'initiative allemande dans le cadre du G7, c'est le sens de l'engagement des Nations unies pour débloquer les ports qui sont bloqués par cette guerre en Ukraine, et nous allons être très engagés sur ce sujet. Vous avez été plusieurs, à juste titre, à mentionner l'importance d'être mobilisés sur le plan intérieur pour adresser les conséquences économiques et sociales. Et là aussi, je vous ai indiqué, parce que la vérité a ses droits, que depuis de très nombreux mois, il n'y a pas un Conseil européen qui ne se penche pas sur la question énergétique. Bien avant, d'ailleurs, la guerre en Ukraine, c'est le cas depuis l'été passé, lorsqu'on a commencé à constater les premières évolutions préoccupantes en termes de prix. Nous allons rester mobilisés par des actions extrêmement concrètes sur le sujet, qu'il s'agisse des propositions de limitation des prix en lien avec les partenaires internationaux, qu'il s'agisse des propositions qui touchent à la réforme possible du marché de l'électricité. On sait que le prix de l'électricité aujourd'hui est très impacté par le prix du gaz. C'est la raison du mandat donné à la Commission pour se pencher sur ce sujet-là. Et je peux vous garantir que les 27 chefs d'État et de gouvernement sont en première ligne au quotidien face à leur population sur le terrain de la cohésion sociale et des conséquences pour le pouvoir d'achat et donc pour le pouvoir de choix de nos concitoyens partout en Europe. Et le Conseil européen va rester engagé sur le sujet. Du reste, il y aura le sommet de la zone euro qui se réunira également à la fin du mois de juin et abordera aussi ces sujets. Enfin, un dernier point qui a été fait par un des collègues qui touche à l'engagement sur le terrain de la politique commerciale. Et je partage effectivement cette impression, ce sentiment qu'on ne peut pas ne pas regarder la politique commerciale de l'Union européenne sans prendre en considération à la fois l'ambition géopolitique et les développements récents, la guerre en Ukraine, mais d'autres développements également, et c'est le sens de ce souhait de mettre ce débat de manière régulière à l'ordre du jour pour engager toutes les institutions européennes, Parlement également, à assumer leurs responsabilités avec des lunettes et un regard adapté à la réalité de la solution. En un mot, ce qui doit nous guider aujourd'hui, c'est la lucidité sur le monde qui change devant nous, parce que cette guerre, il y a plus de 100 jours, a ouvert un nouveau chapitre dans l'histoire de l'Europe. C'est l'unité qui n'est jamais spontanée, l'unité qui requiert des efforts, de l'énergie, de la créativité. C'est la fermeté aussi pour défendre les valeurs, pour défendre cette société dans laquelle nous croyons. Parfois, on abuse, quand on clôture un discours devant cette Assemblée, de cette impression que nos actes aujourd'hui vont déterminer le futur de nos enfants demain. Aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, je crois intimement que chacune des décisions que nous allons prendre ensemble aura un effet majeur pour les prochaines décennies et pour le type de société dans lesquelles nos enfants vivront demain. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. The debate is now closed, and the session will be suspended just for a couple of minutes so that we can arrange things to receive the Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament. So the session is suspended. Thank you.